Abraham Lincoln, in the minds of many people, was a great man. His family was not wealthy. He had to educate himself if he wanted to learn politics. He was the 16th President of the United States. He also served as president during the Civil War. The Civil War was one of the bloodiest wars in the history of the United States, where 620,000 people died fighting. Abraham Lincoln had to play a very important part in the preservation of the United States as a whole. Abraham Lincoln was a congressman. As a congressman, Abraham pushed anti-slavery. He pushed anti-slavery by creating a bill to abolish slavery in the District of Columbia and giving speeches. The bill was created during the Mexican-American War and when the stress on slavery or anti-slavery was increasing. The bill was not passed, but later when Abraham Lincoln became president, the Emancipation Proclamation was. His most memorable speeches were given in Springfield, Missouri on October 4th and Peoria, Illinois on October 16th. They addressed that the expansion of slavery should not happen. Lincoln also spoke out against the Mexican-American War. He said that the war was unnecessary and that there was no reason for it. Abraham Lincoln was an excellent visionary leader. He made his dreams a reality. He freed the slaves, created new departments, and set up a national banking system. The new department he created was the Department of Agriculture. This department is in charge of the federal government policy for farming, food harvesting, safety, forestry, and agriculture. The department helps farms and ranchers meet their needs to do their jobs. The national banking system made the national currency, promised redemption of paper money, and provided a more effective bank supervision. The time when Lincoln was president was a difficult time to be in that office. The southern states were leaving the U.S. because they wanted to preserve slavery in their states. Abraham Lincoln had to try and keep the loyal southern slave states to stay part of the United States. When the Civil War started, Abraham Lincoln had more trouble keeping them loyal. He tried to say that the war was not about freeing the slaves, but getting the seceding southern states back as part of the United States. But as the war went on, he had more pressure to say that it was about freeing the slaves. During the war, Lincoln made the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation was put into effect January 1st, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation stated that all the people that are slaves are to be immediately freed, and if the seceding southern states didn't end their rebellion immediately, then the proclamation would be put into effect. The seceding southern states did not count themselves as part of the United States and didn't do as the Emancipation Proclamation stated. He had to exercise the role of commander-in-chief as the president. As commander-in-chief, Lincoln had to create strategies, command generals, recruit soldiers, conduct weapon testing, and promote and demote officers. Lincoln also delivered speeches to inspire hope, drive the enrolled soldiers with determination, and thank the dead soldiers. One of his speeches as Commander-in-Chief was the Gettysburg Address. The Gettysburg Address said that we cannot forget the soldiers that fought here, that died here, and that we cannot undo what has happened, but we can make sure that the people who fought here and died did not do so in vain. Abraham Lincoln recruited over 500,000 men to fight in the war. Some of the officers that Lincoln hired are McDonwell, Fremont, McClellan, Pope, Burwell, Burnside, and Rosecrans. But all of these men were demoted because they did not win many battles. McDowell lost his battle because he bowed to political pressure and charged into battle before he and his troops were ready. Fremont was demoted because Lincoln was afraid he would push Mississippi to join the Confederacy. McClellan was appointed General of Ohio Volunteers Army on April 23, 1861, by William a general of the regular army. Later, Lincoln appointed McClellan as General-in-Chief, and McClellan gained control of the Potomac Army. McClellan's forces fought in the 7 Days Battle against Robert E. Lee. In those battles, McClellan was badly defeated, and John Pope took McClellan's place as General-in-Chief. Pope's troops suffered greatly in the Second Battle of Manassas, and he was removed from his duties as general. Buell started training Union soldiers in Washington, D.C., and helped the Army of the Republic. McClellan chose Buell to lead the Army of Idaho in Kentucky. Later, he promoted to being a Major General of Volunteers. His forces fought in the Battle of Perryville and advanced, but Buell did not call his men for retreat fast enough, and that cost Buell to lose the battle, and he was removed from his position. Burnside was the major of the Rhode Island militia and created the 1st Rhode Island Infantry. He commanded those troops in the First Battle of Manassas, and later became the General of Volunteers on August 6, 1861. In September of 1861, Burnside was given the control of North Carolina Expeditionary Force. Burnside failed to follow Robert E. Lee in Battle of Antietam and was demoted to the commander of the Army of the Potomac. His second failure was known as the Mud March and was removed from his command. Some officers did very well. Ulysses S. Grant fought very well and won most of his battles. Abraham Lincoln received several complaints to remove Ulysses from office, but Abraham said that he could not spare him because he fights well. Abraham Lincoln studied the strategies proposed by the generals and helped the armies by placing the generals in the right armies, and as well as not having them at all. The legacy of Abraham Lincoln to most people is that he just freed the slaves through the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation immediately freed the slaves once the seceded Southern states returned. It was a very important achievement of Abraham Lincoln and in the history of the United States. But Abraham Lincoln also had to act as commander-in-chief. He allowed all suitable persons to enroll in the military, including the escaped and freed slaves. Abraham deeply believed in equal rights for all. This belief is a large part of his legacy, but he also required that the southern states rejoined the northern states. He did this by making a post-war plan for the seceded states. The plan said that the states had to give up slavery and follow the Constitution. The first states that came back to the north were Louisiana, Arkansas, and Tennessee. These states requested their seats back in the House of Representatives and the Senate. Another part of Abraham Lincoln's legacy are his words. He wrote all of his own speeches, unlike the presidents today. One of his most famous speeches was the Gettysburg Address. It is one of the most famous speeches in the history of the United States. The Gettysburg Address addresses all the people who fought and died at the Battle of Gettysburg. It is said that no one can undo all the deaths that occurred, but we can honor them. Abraham Lincoln died April 14, 1865. He was watching a play at Ford's Theater when John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln in the back of the head. He was quickly rushed to the log house across the street from the theater, where he died. Abraham Lincoln was the first president to be assassinated. His leadership and his legacy still lives on in our country for as long as our states continue to live in peace.